Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Horsemen podcast. It has
Mm-hmm.
been almost an eternity, it feels like.
Yeah.
Over two
Yes.
months.
Yeah.
Over 2 months since our previous episode, but slightly different grouping here. It's Ricky and I, and not only new to Shadow Cult, but he's now new to the Horsemen, Mr. Boss Antelope 86.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag, German hello. Ah, guten Morgen.
Feliz Navidad.
We are so fucking stupid.
Y feliz
We all
próspero
are.
año y felicidad.
We're stupid and people like it somehow.
Yeah, especially my shit. But then again, last
To each
night
their own.
you caused a ton of chaos, and we're not going to get into it right now.
It's okay. We all have our Jam and John moments.
But anyway, so yeah, this is the first episode we've done in over 2 months. The last episode we did was the Meat Hook interview with the interview with Ivan Gujic from Blood Red Throne. We're still working towards getting everybody from Blood
Eventually.
Red Throne. We're only missing the two originals, Freddy and Daniel, but that will come at a different time. And we do still have a couple of interviews on the docket with Samantha from Frozen Soul
Mm-hmm.
and John McEntee from Incantation. So those
And
are still on the docket. And James from Hell
Yeah.
Ripper.
hopefully we
at
can
some
bring
point.
James back to talk about the new album, which has been ripping in all the charts.
Pun intended.
Yes. Pun
I
intended.
knew it. Pun intended. You know all I have to do is squeeze, right? But anyway, so we're back to the old school format where we're doing a top 10 list for this episode. And, well, to kind of preface, originally we were going to do top 10 Metal Blade Records albums, which we
Mhm.
still will do at some point.
Which I had that list done like long time ago, and it
Me
might change
too.
now, but you know,
Mhm.
If we're going to be fair, though, if we were going to do specifically albums, you might as well made a top 30 list.
Probably. Yeah.
probably, but you know, top 10 has always been kind of the sweet spot.
Kind of the standard bearer for
Yeah.
us.
There's
And
only
also,
there's only been one exception. That was with the 20 metal songs of all time. That was like the
that was
only...
mostly just to respond to Watch
Yeah.
Mojo's dumb shit. But
Watch
yeah,
Mojo
so
making unpopular lists. Never heard that one before.
But anyways,
but also this episode was a few weeks in the making. The only reason it took so long to get this episode done is because we was originally going to have another new host, a friend of mine from Instagram, but then she told me she'd just been busy and maybe she'll come in later down the road when she's not doing a bunch of stuff. But hey, doors always open for anybody that's interested. So
yeah,
Life
never
can
say
always
never.
get in the way.
yeah, life gets in the way. Yeah,
But now we're here, and now we're going to talk about Metal Blade Records bands. So Metal Blade started in 1980, 1981, basically thanks to Brian Slagle being one of the biggest metalheads here in the States during a time when glam metal was starting to become really big, and he was in the LA area, but he wasn't as into the glam stuff. He was more into the new wave of British heavy metal stuff over in England, Maiden, Motorhead, Venom, Saxon, early Def Leppard, Diamond Head, among others. Then along comes this young Danish kid named Lars Ulrich, moves from Denmark to LA, at first to become a professional tennis player like his father, but once he became hooked on the new wave of British heavy metal, he's like, no, I want to be a drummer. I want to be involved with this whole thing and see what happens.
yeah.
One of the first people he meets in LA is Brian Slagle, and Brian approached Lars because he saw Lars wearing a Saxon tour shirt, and Brian's like, hey, where'd you get that shirt? Oh, I'm actually moved here from Europe and I'm into the scene. Really? I'm into the scene. Let's hang out and make stuff together. And so
Did we just
Metal
become
Blade-
best friends? You want to do
yeah,
Brian
pretty
in the
much.
garage?
Yep.
Pretty much.
That's basically what it was.
That's pretty much the Step Brothers moment with Lars and Brian. But then Brian decides to form his own label and put together the Metal Massacre compilation.
The first one, which
Yep.
if we ever do the albums, that's gonna be there because it's very important. Even I know it's a compilation album, but still, in terms of the history of the Metal Blade, it's pretty iconic.
Yeah, but I never include compilation albums on my list.
I know
that's kind of been my rule, but yeah, like first Metal Massacre, where he had Hit the Lights Metallica on there, and then from there, the label has just kept growing and growing as the years go on. I mean, hell, Goo Goo Dolls were on Metal Blade for a little bit.
Of all bands, Goo Goo Dolls, people, Goo Goo Dolls. Think about it.
Google the Dolls, yes.
A record label that has had some of the best bands in the underground, which we're talking about in a bit, had the Goo Goo Dolls. It's mind-blowing, people. Mind-blowing.
I mean, it's kind of like Napalm Death going to Dreamcatcher Records.
Or Spitfire Records.
Yeah, Spitfire. That's what I meant.
Yeah. And then also, Metal Blade doesn't get the credit for also being the first metal label to sign a punk band. Yes. Which I'll talk about that band later on in this video. But yeah. And then, of course, they went through different trends of picking up bands from different genres. Like, pretty much most of the 80s, it was thrash, even a little bit of early prog with Fate's Warning. And then you get to the end of the 80s and throughout the majority of the 90s, death metal. They became a death metal label. And then early 2000s, then they kind of got a couple of big metalcore bands like As I Lay Dying and Unearth. And nowadays, they just sign whoever that Brian and Mike Faley really enjoy. No matter the genre. So there you go.
One of my favorite record labels so far, like in terms of them, Century Media, Nuclear Blast,
Early Roadrunner.
Early Roadrunner,
Megaforce, early on.
Yeah. But without further ado, let's go through some honorable mentions. I have a long list of honorable mentions, and these are bands that some of them are new to the label, and some have been established on there for a while, or some that were there for a little while but didn't stay too long. So I brought up the aforementioned As I Lay Dying and Unearth. You know, both of those bands. Say what you will about metalcore, but I think, and say what you will about As I Lay Dying, especially Tim Bestis. As I Lay Dying's a competent band. They've had some great albums: Frail Words, Collapse, Shadows Are Security, and An Ocean Between Us. Even The Powerless Rise. Those 4 albums in particular are really, really good melodic metalcore albums that lean on thrash and mellow death and hardcore. And then with Unearth, hell, I just reviewed their latest album. Granted, they're now on Century Media now, but for a long time they were on Metal Blade. And of course, I would say maybe out of the entire Massachusetts metalcore scene, the most consistent and the one that sticks true to what original metalcore was all about, which was like heavy hardcore grooves, but bringing in a lot of classic metal, particularly Iron Maiden. Like, you listen to the guitar work in Unearth, you will think Iron Maiden when it comes to some of those melodies. So those are 2 bands right out of the gate. Next up, I wanted to bring up Hate Eternal. They were on Metal Blade for a couple of albums. And yeah, only I think 2 or 3 albums, but man, those albums were pummeling. Like, I Monarch. Enough said. So there you go with Hate Eternal. Next up, Vomitory, who are about to release their new album this coming week, which I can't wait for. But yeah, Vomitory, Swedish death metal. That does not sound like traditional Swedish death metal. Sounds closer to American death metal, if anything else. But
it's not one of the best album titles.
Blood Rapture, Raped in Their Own Blood, Primal Massacre. Yeah, some really good stuff. But
like,
yeah,
it's kind of like Cannibal Corpse in a way, but somehow more brutal. Like, in terms of the album titles.
Yeah. Next up, getting into one of my personal favorites, Broken Hope. They had a great 3-album run with Bowels of Repugnance, Repulsive Conception, and especially Loathing, where they got to do a headline tour on the heels of Loathing. And now they're on Century Media, and hopefully new album this year, early next year, please. But yeah, so Broken Hope on the list. Next up, kind of an unexpected one, The Crown.
That's on my list.
Yeah.
The Crown, I would say, in terms of who I would say is the most underrated modern thrash band, it would be The Crown, because it's like they have some death metal leniency to them, but they're straight up balls to the wall thrash. Death Race Kings, one of my favorite modern thrash albums ever. And of course, they even at one point had Tampa from At the Gates on vocals. So there you have it with them. Next up, let's see how many more I got. So now the rest of the honorable mentions are bands that have only been on there for a decade or just gotten on the label. So first, Midnight.
Yeah, Midnight.
Like, they're a band that's only been on Metal Blade for 2 albums so far, and both albums kick ass. And of course, who doesn't love a little Midnight, a little sleazy, blackened metal, speed metal?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Hell Ripper is doing nowadays.
Yeah, though Hell Ripper is a little more thrashy and more dynamic.
Melodic.
They still have that blackened, like, heavy metal veneer, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though Midnight's a lot more sleazy and a little more punky.
A bit more raw, too.
Yeah. Next up, Cult of Luna.
That's all my honorable mentions, too.
Yeah, Cult of Luna. Oh, my God. That last album was so good.
That was an album ender of the year for me.
I think Hannah had it in her, like, a top album of the year list, too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she had it there.
Next up, Revocation.
I was thinking
Especially
about
recently.
mentions.
And then finally, probably the most recent band to be signed to Metal Blade, and happy for them, 200 Stab Wounds.
Yes.
I forgot about them.
And I can't wait for whenever their second album drops. And
Yeah.
hear the difference now that they're on a bigger label, no longer on Maggot Stomp, but now on Metal Blade. All right, Ricky, your list of honorable mentions.
So I have 5 honorable mentions, and the way I did my bands was that they had to release an album or albums, depending on your perspective, primarily only on Metal Blade Records. No association with any other record label or / other records. For example, like Behemoth. Even though Behemoth, they released some albums in Metal Blade, they're primarily signed on Nuclear Blast. So for that case, they are automatically off the list, even though what could have put them. But regardless of that, I have 5 honorable mentions. The Ocean Collective, one of the most diverse bands you can ever hear from Germany. Kind of like Tool, but more adventurous, if I can say so myself. Fate's Warning, again, you brought it up. A bit more prog, one of the first bands signed to Metal Blade Records. Skyforger, a bit some melodic folk metal from Latvia. Only were signed for only probably like 2 record labels were out there. Hamford. What?
Skyforger.
Oh, Skyforger.
Yeah.
Forger, whatever. Hamford, Icelandic Death Tomb. Of course, I had to put a Death Tomb band somewhere in this list, being especially from their latest album, which was so fucking amazing. But regardless of that, and of course, the last honorable mention, Bitch. Just that. Yes. I mean, just that word alone, Bitch. I mean, how iconic is that? Like, goddamn, it's so fucking good. Those first 2 albums, I think they're the only 2 albums she ever released, I think.
Be My Slave and Damnation Valley, I think.
I mean, early beginnings of Metal Blade, but still had a fucking raw power to it.
Boss.
All right. I have a few honorable mentions myself. Now, these 2, I mean, the vocalist was doing stuff at around the same time. I have both Merciful Fate and King Diamond. Shout out to Archer for this one. With Merciful Fate, I always thought it was Melissa and Don't Break the Oath that was on Metal Blade, but I realized those two were on Roadrunner. So when Merciful Fate finally reunited, when King was still doing the solo stuff, 93 came around, and then In the Shadows came out, and then from there, every Merciful Fate album until this point had been released on Metal Blade Records. Hopefully we get a new album soon. And with King Diamond, he they signed in 95 with the Spiral's Lullaby up until Abigail 2. And then I think from there was just Massacre. It was some little label, I'm pretty sure. And I thought,
Massacre Records.
yeah, I think it was Massacre Records, I'm pretty sure. So yeah. I mean, what else needs to be said about King Diamond Merciful Fate? Enough said. Next up, I have a little thrash act that should have been a little bit bigger, coming from where they came from. Violence. The first band that Rob Flynn was in before he would ultimately do Machine Head. Your favorite band, Levi. So, with Violence, Eternal Nightmare is a pretty underrated classic amongst the Bay Area thrash scene. And then after 93, Rob Flynn would ultimately disband and make Machine Head, obviously. Oh, Ricky, I feel bad for doing this, but not really. My next honorable mention is Primordial.
They're on my list.
Mine too.
Do I need to say anything else? All right, I won't say anything else then. Next up, I have an all-Nathrak. Mick Kinney and Dave Hunt, with Shane Embry from Napalm Death ultimately being in the band for a little bit. Weird band. Their grind, their first
industrial album, blackened grind.
Yeah, the first album was more black metal in some ways, but they went a little more industrial. Then they went death metal. Then they went grind, and they're doing all things at
basically everything.
Yep. Next on my honorable mention, Levi already mentioned it. Cult of Luna. Long Road North was an absolutely amazing album. What else do I need to be needs to be said? Next up, I have another underrated band, Sacrifice. Part of the big four of thrash metal, even though they're a little more speed metal. Alongside with Razor, Annihilator, and of course Voivod. I did not have Voivod on my list because I just forgot they were on Metal Blade. But
for one album.
Yeah, Sacrifice, very underrated. We go from one underrated band to another one. I have Satan. In the court.
He worship Satan.
Jeez. I didn't think you were gonna do that. God damn it.
In the court of the act, one of the best albums to come out of the new wave British heavy metal act. And then they went away for a little bit after a couple more albums, and then they came back in 2013. And then I heard their latest album, Earth Infernal, was really damn good. Next up, these next two bands I'm willing to bet are on your guys' list. My penultimate one is, of course, Slayer. The only reason why I have them in honorable mentions is because they only put out 2 albums. And my criteria is you made 2 or 3 more albums, or 3 or more albums on my criteria. The Slayer, of course, Show No Mercy, classic debut, the iconic Haunting the Chapel EP, and of course Hell Awaits. What more needs to be said about them? My final honorable mention, I hate that I put this on honorable mentions. If they were still going and they're releasing a couple more albums, they would have obviously made my list. Of course, the almighty Bolt Thrower. I mean, when they joined Metal Blade in 98, Mercenary, Honor, Valor, Pride, and of course their final album, Those Once
Loyal.
Those Once Loyal, R.A.P. to Martin Kearns. What else needs to be said about Bolt Thrower that hasn't been said already?
All right. Well, now into our actual list. So my number 10, Primordial. So yeah, Primordial basically goes to show how far Metal Blade's willing to go in terms of styles and countries. Of course, getting an Irish blackened folk band on Metal Blade, and of course, we did a whole episode dedicated to the Nameless Dead, and that's still the landmark for Primordial overall. So yeah, Primordial, my number 10. Ricky.
My number 10 is a band that Arthur and I bonded at first when we first started talking. Powerwolf.
You're never going to be on your list.
Yeah, I mean, Powerwolf, yeah, I know it's more of a power metal, kind of more religious kind of thing, but I like power metal. I mean, the fact that they're from Germany and they sing about stuff from the Bible and religion and all that, but have their own twist on it. Sure, it could get cheesy at times, but still fucking kicks ass. You know, there's Blood of the Saints, one of my favorite Powerwolf albums. The latest 2 albums they released are pretty good. Have consistency sometimes. Great ballads. Me being the ballad guy of the Horsemen. You know, it's kind of a sweet spot for me. For me, Powerwolf is a good on, great band. And Powerwolf, if you're seeing this, come to the States. I really want to see you guys live, please.
Boss.
My number 10 is a band you guys might have a little bit higher on your list. And shout out to Scott for this. Gwar. I mean, raunchy comedic thrash done right. I mean, when they got their first stint with Metal Blade, Scumdogs of the Universe, I mean, it was off to the races with that. I mean, this Toilet Earth. Do I need to say more about that album? Yeah, they didn't last a whole while with them. Their latest one on Metal Blade was Violence Has Arrived in 2001, but even then, that whole stretch of albums, I mean, it's some of the best thrash of the 90s. Again, Scumdogs of the Universe, Toilet Earth, Violence Has Arrived, that's a hell of an album. So yeah, Gwar, I mean, I really wasn't into them at first because I thought their style didn't really blend with me, but as time has gone on, I've really gone to appreciate these guys. But yeah, Gwar, my number 10.
Gwar is one of those bands that, like you said, Boss, it kind of took me a while to get into Gwar because I think some of them, it could be a bit more comical. But if you see videos of them live, you kind of have another perspective, which, you know, if you all had the chance to see Gwar live, I really suggest you all to go. I haven't had that opportunity. Hopefully someday I can see Gwar live and just be covered in whatever the hell they throw. Same thing with Ghoul, you know.
Ghouls.
Yeah.
We are all ghouls.
Whatever the hell they
I love Goyles.
You know.
Boss, so you're the stream in the background.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Oh, there you go. Never mind.
All right, we're good.
We good.
All right, so now on to number 9.
Nine.
Just reach your line.
I hate you both.
9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. Oh,
Get out of
yes,
your
yes, yes,
systems.
yes, 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 yes.
I swear I took my meds beforehand.
But my number, Jesus Christ, my number 9 goes back to what I was talking about with the early history of the label. The first punk band to be on Metal Blade, Dirty Rotten Imbeciles, DRI.
I thought you were going to say King's X for a hot sec.
No, for DRI, yeah, starting out more of that hardcore sound or thrashcore, some people call it, because they played so damn fast. And then once they go on Metal Blade with the album Dealing With It, started to weave in metal, but then you get to the following 3 albums, Crossover, Four of a Kind, and Thrash Zone. They pretty much gone away from hardcore and straight up into thrash metal and made crossover thrash what it is. And who knows, without DRI, would we have bands like Municipal Waste and Power Trip and Enforced? Mm-hmm. I highly doubt it.
Havoc to a lesser extent.
But yeah, DRI, my number 9, Ricky.
My number 9 is a band that I have the opportunity to see live, Amon Amarth.
I figured they were going to be on your list.
Yeah, I mean, I need to say this. Amon Amarth live is an experience of its own, especially when you have the opportunity do the roll. It was so much fun. But Amon Amarth, Viking metal, even though some people don't consider that a sub genre.
It's
Right?
not.
There you
It's
go.
not.
It's
I mean,
death metal.
melodic death metal. Talk about the Vikings and Odin and Thor and whatever you want to mention. Everything about Amon Amarth is fucking amazing. Twilight of the Thunder God. That album alone.
The Berserker.
What more can I say about Amon Amarth that hasn't been said before? Enough said.
Boss.
My number 8 is a bit
9.
9.
Sorry. My number 9 is a band that never gets talked about, even though his side projects do get talked about. Charred Walls of the Damned. Ripper Owens is a godsend that no one talks about. Everyone says he's a Halford ripoff. To I said, who cares? If you sound like the metal god, you're doing something right. Charred Walls of the Damned, for those of you who don't know, it's Ripper Owens, Steve DiGiorgio, Richard
Christie.
and
Jason Sukoff.
Jason Sukoff, that's what his name was. All four came together to do a project, and it's damn good. It's got some power metal in it, but it's like straightforward heavy metal with a little bit of thrash and speed metal involved too. But the self-titled album was great. Creatures Watching Over the Dead, and their sophomore outing was really damn good too. Even though they were kind of flirting a little bit with prog, I believe, because it's nearly 60 minutes. But top to bottom, these guys deserve way more attention than they actually do. But the reason why it's lower, it's because they only released 3 albums. But, you know, Ripper's doing his own thing. Steve's in like 1,800 bands at this point. And
Richard's still on Howard Stern every once in a while.
Yeah.
And Jason producing so much.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, everyone's doing their own things. But I will be getting new albums soon because they haven't released one since 2016. So hoping we get a new album. So yeah, my number 9, Charred Walls of the Damned.
My number 8.
There you go.
Way better than
Yeah. But yeah, my number 8, Cattle Decapitation.
Number 8 too. Number 8. Stay with me.
Boss's number 2. But yeah, Cattle Decap, once they got on Metal Blade, I want to say it was around the time of To Serve Man and Humanure back in the early to mid 2000s. It's like ever since then, they just keep getting better and better and better because I'm going to be straight up, first 2 albums are hot garbage. Do not like them at all. So, really? And then you get To Serve Man, which is still transitioning into what they would eventually become. Humanure, giant step forward, but really from Karma, Bloody Karma, all the way to right now with Terracide, just a great run of albums going forward. Still, I would say the best out of the bunch would be either Monolith of Inhumanity or Anthropocene Extinction.
Death Atlas.
As the only one who has the opportunity to see Cattle live alongside Amon Amarth, Travis's performance is out of this fucking world. I mean, I swear to God. Those
goblin vocals.
That goblin vocals. I swear to God. I swear. I'm afraid Travis one is just going to have like a fucking heart attack and we're not going to fucking notice. But that guy, being that he's in his 40s, mid 40s.
Almost 50.
Almost 50. Still has the energy and passion and just craziness of a 20-year-old. And Levi, I'm sorry, but honestly, To Serve Man and Humane are pretty good albums, in my personal opinion. Humble beginnings from a band who eventually will get better after Karma, Bloody Karma. Of course, Monolith of Humanity, Forced Gender Reincitement. That song alone kind of notoriously made the band bigger. Death Atlas was something crazy. The latest album, Terracide, just another example of why this band has been able to give us amazing, diverse albums throughout their 20-plus year career. And hopefully they kind of do a solo tour in the near future promoting Terracide. And I'll gladly see them live again. Hopefully I can meet Travis this time around.
They've really been the talk of the town. They've been been the main talk of May.
I mean, especially after releasing, Death Atlas in 2019. And of course, in 2020 being the pandemic, have a song called Bring Back the Plague. Who would have thought? I mean, I'm pretty sure the guys didn't do
The
that.
cruel irony.
Yeah.
And they even made fun of that in the
Oh,
music video
and
for the song.
funny enough, when I saw them live, the banner in the background was pretty much a map of the world covered in red where the virus has been spreading.
Gee.
So to me, that was just like a piece of the puzzle combined. I mean, Cattle Decap, Crazy Man Live, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Boss?
Number 8, right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, my number 8 properly is a very underrated band, Armored Saint.
Forgot about Armored Saint.
For those of you who know of John Bush, and for those of you who only know John Bush for his time in Anthrax, listen to the band before he joined Anthrax in the 90s. Armored Saint, yeah, they had a self-titled EP, and they were on a different label than Metal Blade. But once Symbol of Salvation came around, it's just been a whole string of excellence. Punch in the Sky, their latest album, was pretty damn good. But John Bush, yes, say what you will about his vocal style in Anthrax, he wasn't as quite great as he was in Armored Saint. But listen to him in Anthrax and listen to him in Armored Saint. I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, this dude has one of the finest vocals ever. He's one of my personal favorites. And to see this band still, to this day, going out and making killer material after, since 83, they've been making killer stuff. I mean, March of the Saint, even though it wasn't on Metal Blade, that debut album is one of the best debuts of all time. So, yeah, my number 8, Armored Saint.
All right, on to number 7. It was brought up earlier, and that's Amon Amarth. Been on that label since the very beginning of their studio output with Once Through to Golden Hall, the only album with Martin Lopez on drums before he would go into Opeth, and then just really ever since then. And they were doing the whole Viking-themed Melodeath sound before it became cool. And
well, you're gonna give credit to Bathory in some perspective.
I said Melodeath.
True.
I said Melodeath.
True. Melodeath. True.
Yeah, the Viking-themed Melodeath sound before anybody else started to do it. And then, of course, my personal favorite would be With Odin on Our Side. Because I think in terms of, complete consistency, that was the big one with songs like Runes to My Memory, Cry of the Blackbirds, Loki's Treachery.
Oh, that song live. My God. So
give it to
awesome.
me, y'all.
Yeah, Cry of the Blackbirds. Isn't that also when you see everybody with the swords and they just start going
Yes, you had two Vikings fighting swords with each other as the band was playing live. How epic is that?
Mm-hmm. That is pretty sweet. But, yeah, Amon Amarth, my number 7. Ricky?
My number 7, and I'm surprised you kind of had them in your honorable mentions, Levi. I was expecting you to have them on your actual list, and that is Broken Hope. Yes, even though they released 3 albums only in Broken Hope, originally being more about 4 to 5 albums. My God, those albums that they released were some of the most brutal. I mean, pretty much they kind of, alongside Cannibal Corpse, put the blueprint of brutal death metal eventually. Bands like Cattle Decap with the grind and all that, but also Repugnance, Loathing, Repulse Conception, classic albums, Untouchable. I mean, it's fucking Broken Hope. And I'm not just sucking because we have Jeremy Wagner on the podcast at some time ago, but Broken Hope was a band that this motherfucker actually introduced me 2 years ago, and now I'm a bigger fan of them.
Boss?
My number 7 is Goat Whore.
Goat Whore. Again, another band I forgot to mention.
So with Goat Whore, they originally were a little Black in Death, but as the years go on, when they signed with Metal Blade in 2006 for the Haunting Curse album, they went more black and thrash. And for there, Constricting Rage and the Merciless. Do I need to say anything else? Eventual Ascension, and wasn't their latest album on Metal Blade, or was it on a different?
Yeah, it's on Metal Blade.
Yeah.
Okay. and I unfortunately didn't listen to the album, but I did hear some good, really damn good songs. But these guys still kill it. Even though I think they formed in '96, I think somewhere in the late '90s. These guys have been just killing it ever since. So yeah, my number 7, Goat Horde.
All right, my number 6. I just did a whole ranking for them, and that's Immolation.
Oh, I forgot.
3.
Oh, I feel stupid.
Get used to that, boss. We all have those moments every single
forgot they
time.
were on Metal Blade for a little. And to me, represent.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, Immolation, yeah, again, only 3 albums, but all 3 of them were outstanding in their own own right. With Here and After, that was among my top 3. I mean, the doomiest album in Immolation's career.
Mm-hmm.
Failures for Gods, while rough production, still great. And then Close to a World Below. I mean, that pretty much set the stage for everything Immolation's doing nowadays with their sound. But yeah, Immolation, and it's, again, they've been fortunate to be on big labels in their whole career, starting off on Roadrunner, then the Metal Blade, then the Listenable, now on Nuclear Blast. But yeah, just for Close to a World Below and Here and After alone, Immolation, my number 6. Mm-hmm. Ricky.
My number 6 is a band I'm pretty sure both of you must have a bit higher in the list. The Black Dahlia Murder. Yeah, I kind of figured. Of course, they've been in the label since their inception. Unhallowed, released back in 2003, until the latest one in 2020 with Verminous. Black Dahlia Murder, a consistency of metal death in America of all, places, even though metal doesn't really associate with America, even though they're from Michigan,
Detroit.
Yeah, around the Detroit area. To me personally, Abysmal, probably one of my favorite album of the Black Dahlia. Even though their discography is like consistent to perfection, it's just a shame that, of course, what happened with
Travis last year. Trevor.
What happened with Trevor? And I hope that the band kind of keeps going on, maybe with a new vocalist.
Well, they are going with Brian, the original guitarist, as the vocalist, and Ryan Knight back in the band.
Or for all we know, there's some recordings of Trevor just doing something. Hopefully, that's the case if they were released a new album in a year or 2 years from now. But Black Dahlia Murder, what more can I say?
Boss?
My number 6, granted, they've only released a couple albums, but one of the few albums that have still on Metal Blade right now, and I think they're touring right now. Rivers of Nile.
Yeah. One of the new ones. One of the new bands of Metal Blade.
Granted, their first album, The Conscience Seed of Light, was a bit of a weird album where they had some progressive elements, but they had a little bit of gent in it, and they had some, I think, death metal. Kind of a weird one, but after that, they started really getting better. I mean, the work from 2021 was an absolute roller coaster of an album. Very emotional, a lot of raw emotion going on.
Growls Know My Name.
Oh, God, yeah. And these guys have been going pretty damn strong ever since, and if they make a new album in the future, I'll be willing to check it out. I know I said in the past, prog ain't really my vodka, but when it comes to like different varieties and you have a little bit of variation and a little bit of diversity in it, I'll enjoy it. So yeah, Perfect Now, my number 6.
All right, into the top 5 we go. My number 5 is a band that I'm not sure if you guys are going to bring up, but it's Sacred Reich.
I was thinking of putting him on the list. I almost did.
I almost did too.
I mean, one of the best Arizona bands, at least for that time. I almost thought about putting Flotsam and Jetsam on my list.
Same with me. I almost pulled the trigger on that one too.
But I went with Sacred Reich because they've still been on Metal Blade even after they broke up and then came back together. back on Metal Blade. But what puts them on the list for me is their first 3 releases: Ignorance, Surf Nicaragua, and The American Way. Those first 2 albums and the EP, just classics for thrash. Most particularly Ignorance. Like, that album, just balls to the wall, brutal, but with like that punk vocal style of Phil Rind. And even their latest album, their comeback album, Awakening, it was okay. I'm just not a fan of their approach on the whole groove metal vibe. But when they did the thrash songs, like the title track, it was really good. But it was just an uneven album. But who knows? Maybe with another album, they'll get everything sorted out. But yeah, Sacred Reich, one of the most underrated bands in general.
One of the most fun, too.
Ricky?
My number 5 is a band that I'm not sure you might not mention. Of course, I'm talking about Horsemen. One of the first bands to be on Metal Blade. Of course, their first 4 albums, a consistency of heavy metal, and would eventually become power metal, being one of the first, quote-unquote, I guess, American power metal bands that kind of influenced what would later become power metal. And actually, if I could get this right here, I actually had the opportunity to see Horsemen live when they reunited. And of course, I got the set list with, of course, Kenny Powell, the original guitarist, signed it. And I actually took a picture and I have his guitar pick somewhere. But, you know, Horsemen live was something unique. And of course, my favorite album, Warning of Danger, the title track alone is one of my favorites. What was another one from that song? Ruby Eyes with the Serpent, another great track. Pretty much, even though Horsemen's no longer on Metal Blade, their albums are consistency. The first 4 on Metal Blade are some of the most heavy power metal albums you're going to hear back in the 85 through 88. Horsemen should get the more recognition that they should, because, of course, not a lot of people mention them. But you know what? It's fucking Horsemen. And the fact that I got to see them live and meet the entire band, to me, that gets some points for me.
Boss?
My number 5, Levi, you mentioned them, The Crown. Originally known as Crown of Thorns, they were originally black and death metal in some ways. Then they were more melodic death metal. Then they were just straightforward death metal, and now they're thrash. I mean, sometimes you gotta shift from genre to genre, but ever since Hell Is Here, up until I think their latest album, Royal Destroyer, these guys have just been killing it. Of course, Death Race King, Drowned in Terror, Possessed 13, Doomsday King, Crowned Unholy, Death Is Not Dead, and of course, Cobra Speed Venom. These guys have just been killing it. And these guys have really started to become one of my favorites as the years have gone on. These guys have just been absolutely killing it when it comes to, you know, songwriting, you know, all that hoopla. And I just love it. So my number 5, The Crown.
All right, my number 4, it's already been mentioned, Black Dahlia Murder. Been there since the beginning, still there to this day. Another one of those bands that when the day comes to rank all their albums, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And I know the Thralls guys are going to end up ranking here in a couple of rankings later. But yeah, rest in peace, Trevor. And hopefully with Brian, the only original member still left, now taking on the vocals, hopefully they can keep the momentum rolling whenever that day comes, if we get a new album. But yeah, Black Dahlia. Ricky.
My number 4 has already been mentioned, Primordial. So Primordial for me is a band that kind of has a warm place in my heart, because it was the first band that Arthur and Hannah introduced me to when we're trying to have the ideas for the podcast. They automatically asked me if I knew who Primordial was. Of course, I said no at the time. They went crazy that they know Primordial. They told me to check out the Nameless Dead. And then, of course, I ended up loving it. Years later, I told this guy, Levi, to listen. He loved it. Raphael, the same thing. And, you know, Primordial folk black metal band from, of all places, Ireland, which you never think Ireland has much of a scene, even though Thin Lizzy, mostly rock band, but they're from Ireland. But
Cruachan.
Cruachan, but Primordial, again, one of those bands that Primordial, come to the States, please. I would love to see live, especially if I can see Alan sing Gallows Ham. I'll fucking die. No pun intended.
Boss.
My number 4 is your number 4, Levi. Black Dahlia Murder. I mean, what else can I say about this band? I mean, there's no bad album that they haven't released. It's funny too that when I was in high school, a classmate of mine was trying to get me into this band. I just didn't dig it because I didn't know what melodic death metal was at that point. And I was, flirting around with the alternative stuff like Slipknot because that was the band that really got me into the heavier stuff. But as time's gone on, I've been hearing a lot of praise from this band. I decided to check it out, and I'm like, man, what have I missed? What have I been missing out on? I wish Trevor was still here. It sucks he's no longer with us. Even if the band does release killer material, it still will not be the same. It's kind of like a Raleigh from Power Trip. It won't be the same, even if the music still kicks ass. But for top to bottom, What a Terrible Night to Have a Curse is arguably their best track. Nightbringers, Nocturnus, their latest album, Vernimus, was really damn good. Just top to bottom, this band just continues to make killer melodic death metal in terms of the American side. So, my number 4, Black Dahlia Murder.
My number 3, Slayer!
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, Slayer, yeah, only 2 albums and 1 EP, but fucking, they're still great albums. And if that wasn't for their time on Metal Blade, who the hell knows where Slayer would have went? After all, you look back to their early days when they were on their Show No Mercy. And funny enough, it was Brian Slagle who produced the early Slayer stuff. And solid job as a producer. Who had never done anything like this before. And then Haunting the Chapel, arguably the greatest EP of all time. I don't know, it's tough. There's a lot of EPs that you could put in that spot.
The Sign of Evil EP up there too.
There's a lot. And then, of course, Hell Awaits, which is still my personal favorite Slayer album, just for how evil and brutal it sounds. Yeah.
I'm just imagining... I'm just imagining an alternative universe. Slayer is still in Metal Blade, and they still release, Raining Blood. Can you imagine that? Oh, God.
Metal Blade would have become a major label if that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But, yes, Slayer, my number 3. Ricky.
My number 3 is Immolation. Hereinafter, Failure for Gods, Close to World Below. What more can I say? Next.
Boss.
My number 3, Levi, you brought up Vomitory. I mean, just some of the best album titles. 96, Raped in Their Own Blood, Redemption, Blood Rapture, Terrorized, Brutalized, Sodomized, Carnage Euphoria. And I'm really anticipated for their upcoming album, All Heads Are Gonna Roll. And just killer stuff. Eric Rundquist, hell of a bassist, and vocalist too. Peter Ostlund, Tobias, Gustafsson, and Urban Gustafsson. I mean, these guys are top to bottom, just killer stuff. One of the best bands from the Swedish death metal scene. So yeah, Vomitory, my number 3.
My number 2, one of the long-standing ones, and that's Fate's Warning. Yeah, they've been in and out of Metal Blade ever since they were on there, but still they're on there now. I mean, early American power metal early on the first couple of albums, then they became one of the founding fathers of American prog metal, along with Queensryche and Sabotage. Awaken the Guardian is a classic. No Exit. No Exit's great. And then you get into albums like
Vector Within.
Perfect Symmetry and Parallels. Those are fantastic. And then even their last album, Long Day, Good Night. And I can't wait to hear what these guys have in store next, considering that lineup they have right now is really strong with Ray Alder, Jim Matheos, Joey Vera, and Bobby Jarzenbeck all killing it. So, yeah. Fates Warning, my number 2. Ricky?
My number 2... Slayer!
Slayer!
That's it. Slayer.
Hey man, you want a beer? Slayer?
Fucking Slayer! Boss.
My number 2 has already been mentioned. Cowl Decapitation. Travis Ryan. He can do anything. Like, I swear, I've never heard a guy that can do gutturals, Halford screams, and Smeagol.
Black metal vocals and the Goblin vocals.
It sounds like Smeagol leading a band. It's weird, but
and it's funny.
How charming.
It's funny. Even when he sings, he kind of does the Gollum kind of like walk.
He's like, sir, this is a Wendy's. I mean, Terrorsight.
Yeah, take away my precious.
Oh God, what am I doing here? Shut up, Barnes. We're not talking about you. All right, fine. But yeah, Terrorsight, album of the year, arguably. I mean, Monolith of Inhumanity, Anthropocene, Extinction, Death Atlas. It just killer material ever since they went to the 2010s. So yeah, number 2.
And I think we all have the same number 1 here. So
we better.
In 3, 2, 1. Cannibal
Corpse.
6
Boss.
feet.
God damn it.
You
are trying way too hard to be Walter, I swear.
No, I mean, of course it's Cannibal. I mean, what can we say about the band that has not been said? I mean, come on.
They have been the longest reigning band on that record label.
Since 89.
Mm-hmm.
How many bands do you know out there that have been in one single record label the entire career?
For 30 years, yeah.
Not that many.
Well, I was trying to think of an example, but I really can't think of one.
Everything about Cannibal, you can throw a fucking dart on all their albums, and you get killer things.
Saw them on SPV.
Well, they still had one album that wasn't on there.
But the vast
majority, yeah.
But
yeah, with Cannibal, I mean, another one of the most consistent death metal bands of all time. And even albums that are seen as weak aren't even weak. They're still really good.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I mean, The Bleeding.
The Bleeding.
The best Barnes has ever sounded.
Tomb of the Mutilated. Kill. Vile.
Violence Unimagined.
Torture.
So was Suicide of Gallery.
Gallery
Suicide. Well,
Bloodthirst.
The Wretched Spawn.
Eaten Back to Life. Again, every fucking album. Jesus Christ.
Everything.
Skeletal Domain. Like the Barnes, Corpse Grinder. I mean, what can we say about this band? Jack Owen, Pat O'Brien, Eric Rutan, Paul Mazurkiewicz, the legend of
Rob Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Webster, yep.
Alex. Fucking Corpse Grinder. His fucking neck gets thicker and thicker every single year.
I think it's
Who the hell is this dude with the fucking neck?
I don't even think it's thick. I think it's girthy at this point. These diamonds are girthy too.
You stole my spot.
The Moondog spot?
Anyways, I'm just gonna pretend I didn't hear that. But yeah, Cannibal Corpse. I mean, again, just Cannibal Corpse.
Cannibal
The
Corpse.
best band on Metal Blade Records forever and always will be. But of course, when it comes down to, like I said, with the recent bands, well, actually, why don't we take a look at the current roster that Metal Blade has?
Yeah,
And let's go through
yeah.
all of the notable bands
Yeah.
that
Let's
are
see what
on
they
there
have.
currently. So we got 200 Stab Wounds, like I brought up.
Mm-hmm.
We have Act of Defiance, which is a somewhat supergroup featuring former members of Megadeth and current members of Shadowfall. So you got them. Aeon, which Dragon Shadow brought up. Yeah, I forgot about Aeon. Allegion. Last year, that album, what the hell was it called? Damnum.
Yeah,
Such a roller coaster that album was. Amon Amarth, Anal Nothrak, Angel Witch is now over there. He also got the Arch Matheos side project with John Arch and Jim Matheos from Fate's Warning. Armored Saint, Artillery, Battlecross, which I'm shocked hasn't released anything for a while. Bitch, Byzantine, Cannibal Corpse, Cal Decapitation, Charred Walls of the Damned, Surath Ungol. Let's see, Cognitive, Cryptic Shift, Cult of Luna, Defleshed, Insephirum, Inseeker, Exhumer. I forgot about Exhumer. Fate's Warning, Goat Lord, or not Goat Lord, Goat Whore, Guar, the band Hate. Forgot about them. Forgot about Hate. Ingested, Intronaut, Iotune, which I still need to get into that album. Jim Matheos solo. Even a couple of comedians, Jim Florentine and Don Jameson, formerly of That Metal Show, are on there.
Jim Florentine would host Ozzy Osbourne every once in a while.
Yeah. Job for a Cowboy. Please release something new.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, Joey Vera, John Arch, Killswitch Engage is now over on Metal Blade, or have been since their last album. King Diamond, Merciful Fate, Midnight Monstrosity, Nasty Savage, Paths of Possession, Corpse Grinders, Mellow Death Project, Primordial, Revocation, Rivers of Nile, Sacred Reich, Satan, Serpentine Dominion, side project of Corpse Grinder, and Adam D from Killswitch. 6 Feet Under, Soylent Green, Sorcerer, Black Dahlia Murder, The Crown, The Ocean Collective, Red Cord, Tyr, The Sanya, Violence, Visigoth, Vomitory, Whiplash, and Whitechapel.
Not bad. Not a bad catalog, to be honest.
There's a band called Haunted Garage.
What?
It's a horror punk band. Sir, my garage is haunted.
Get out.
Okay, closer. What?
Satan is 79%.
Yeah.
Knew I had to go there.
The Satanist at number 7.
Yeah, the
Royal not a battle royal.
Now you're trying to piss Levi off.
Now you're really trying too hard.
Now you're really trying. But I mean, now that we're on Metal Blade, let's see what the latest Metal Blade records are going to be released in the year, because I'm pretty sure they must have some pretty good record labels.
Well,
coming out this year.
Well, it's kind of hard to see like what's going to be released right now on just a specific label, but like,
or at least another notable one besides, of course, Cattle.
Vomitory's coming out next week.
Yeah, Vomitory coming out. Any Metal Blade albums I checked out from this year? Uh,
Well, of course, Calendar Cap. That's
Oh,
the
besides
It's like
Calendar
that's
Cap.
like the biggest one.
Yeah, that's really all so far this year. But yeah, we had Calendar Cap, and this coming weekend is Vomitory, and probably a few others.
Unless they somehow release something that out of nowhere, which they could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Graveyard Classics 5. Let's go!
Oh God!
Memes!
God fucking damn it! And I swear, if they ever do that, I mean, honestly, after they released Classics Volume 2, when they covered the entire motherfucking Black album, I still fucking hate that album to death. I don't know what could be worse if they would have recovered Slayer or something
No,
like.
the breaking point for me was when they did Priest and Maiden. That was like the breaking point for me. I'm like, no, I can't with you right now.
Oh, trust me, they can go way worse.
They could do Queen.
Oh God!
I want to break free.
No,
to break.
you know what will be fucking worse if they have the audacity to cover Five Finger Cussing Fuck. I mean, Death Punch.
Hey, that's not fair. At least 6 Feet Under was cool.
In what universe?
Oh, I got one. 6 Feet Under covering the entire Catharsis album.
Oh God!
Are you trying to age me till I'm 90 years old and die right now? That's a serious question.
A magician never reveals his secrets.
Anyway, so before I end up committing war crimes on Boss, that does it for this episode of the Horsemen podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, in the next episode, we'll get Sam from Frozen Soul once the Frozen Soul tour is over. Until next time, keep your horns high and dreams wet. Bye.
Bye.
I'm done.